One of my assumptions, premises, is that we're facing challenges now which are unprecedented. And I think that's literally true, that we're living in revolutionary times. And we've always, in human life, lived through times of great turbulence, but there's something particular about now which is unlike previous challenges that generations have faced. And there are two big drivers, I think. One of them is population growth. We are now the largest generation of human beings ever to live on Earth. There are about 7.5 billion people, which is almost 10% of the total number of human beings who've ever lived. And we're maybe heading for 9-10 billion by the end of the century. We don't know if the Earth can tolerate us in the way that we currently consume and occupy the planet. And secondly, we're living through a time of accelerating exponential technological innovation. So we're the largest generation in history and also the most connected. And these in themselves are presenting massive challenges to our relationship with the Earth, with the planet. They're bringing about enormous economic challenges. They're bringing about tremendous cultural strains, as we've seen. One of my big concerns is that our technological capacities are exceeding our spiritual capacities. There's no indication yet that we're becoming more sensitive, more compassionate, and more able to live together than we ever did before. And now we have these massive tools at our disposal, which could be tools for great good or the alternative. So these are major challenges that education has to address. It's not entirely or exclusively the preserve of education to solve these, but education has to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. You know, there was a quote I use in Changer l'école from H.G. Wells, who said that civilization is a race between education and catastrophe. It's a dramatic way to put it, but I think it's true. I think we have major challenges now that we've never had before, and education has to engage with them to be of any value to us. One of the themes that I've been campaigning on for a long time is the importance of creativity. And creativity is often misunderstood. There are a whole series of myths around creativity. One of them is that only special people are creative. Another is that creativity is about the arts, for example, in particular. And a third is that it's all about freedom and lack of constraint. My argument is that creativity is the signature feature of human intelligence. A lot of the challenges that we face on Earth are, ironically, the consequence of human creativity. You know, we're not like the rest of life on Earth. From that point of view, we live in great civilizations. We live within frameworks of ideology and ideas. Human beings have always lived in a virtual reality, a reality created by our beliefs and our value systems and our technologies and inventions. Creativity is everywhere in human life. It's in our architecture, our technology, our ways of being together, the cultures that we create collectively. And it's been one of our great gifts. It's also one of our great challenges, to find ways of dealing with the great burgeoning of humanity across the planet and all the technological things that have helped to impel it. So education should be a process of developing our natural capacities in part. And I've long believed that human resources are like the world's natural resources. They're very diverse. And schools tend to focus on a very narrow band of intelligence rather than the full range of intelligence. Secondly, human talent is often buried beneath the surface. You may not know it's there. People live their entire lives often without discovering what they're naturally good at and what their real talents are. So education should help to uncover them. And the third way in which human talent is like the Earth's natural resources is you have to develop it. In its raw state, it's often not clear what its value is. But you have to refine it and develop it and apply it in practice. The third way in which human resources are like natural resources is you have to refine them and develop them to see what their real value is. And education should be about those things. And the reason I think it's so important now is that given the rate of change in the world and the complexity of the world that we've created, it's very important that our children discover what their own talents are, that they're confident in their talents and their abilities, and that they're able to adapt to the changes that they are going to be swept up in. So if you have forms of education which focus on a narrow band of ability, you're inevitably going to marginalize the talents of very, very many people, and we do that. And if you have forms of education which stifle creativity and innovation, it's very unlikely that our kids will be able to adapt quickly in the way they have to the changes that swirl around them. So to me, the big challenge in preparing our children for the future is to develop these talents that are already inside them that need to be brought to the surface and refined. There are three major elements in schools, in education. The curriculum, pedagogy and assessment. And what I'm arguing for has implications for all three of them. The curriculum in many schools is based on a hierarchy of disciplines. So you see typically mathematics, languages and science at the top, and then the humanities and the arts and physical education somewhere near the bottom. I really think we have to reconfigure our understanding of the curriculum. You know, young people develop in all kinds of ways on all sorts of fronts. They develop physically, they develop emotionally, they're developing cognitively, and they're developing spiritually and culturally. And all of those developments, if we're to attend to them properly, require a curriculum that's broad and balanced and is based on principles of equity and equality. There's no argument I can think of for considering, for example, the arts, music, theatre, poetry, dance and the rest, as being less important intellectually, emotionally, culturally than the sciences. They're not more important, but they're as important. If you look at the historical evolution and the dynamics of our great civilizations and cultures, the arts and sciences interweave at every point. It's only in schools that we separate them out and think of them as being hierarchically related. I think that's a very unhealthy hierarchy in schools. Children develop physically, and we spend an awful lot of time sitting kids down at desks and giving them intellectual work to do. But we know that they learn more effectively, they learn with more energy and greater curiosity if we pay proper attention to their physical development as well. So that's equally important. And the humanities are about understanding the relationships between cultures and the historical growth and development of our different ways of life. So there's a big implication for the balance and the dynamics of the curriculum. A second is about pedagogy. We often think of pedagogy as instruction. The teacher knows something and they're going to impart that to the students. Well, that's an important part of pedagogy. Teachers do know things that students don't, but students know things that teachers don't, and students know things among them that they don't know. Human knowledge is a very densely woven fabric. Nobody knows everything. We all know something close to ourselves, and we depend upon the knowledge of other people. So pedagogy should be much more interactive if it's to enable children to take account and to become responsible for their own learning. And assessment has to be refashioned too, because assessment is often very narrow and based on quantitative information, which has a value, but many of the most important developments in education are qualitative in nature. They're about individual sensibilities and the growth and development of cultural knowledge and sensibilities. So you can't really reform one bit of education without looking at all of it. And the implication of what we're talking about affects curriculum, pedagogy and assessment.